Rabindranath Tagore, The Homecoming. Almost every Indian knows the name of Rabindranath Tagore, the great poet, novelist, essayist, songwriter, playwright, political and social leader that he was. Bengali literary world in particular as well as Indian literature in general cannot think of its presence and identity without taking into account the writings of Tagore, who not only got Nobel Prize for Literature but also created a much needed political and spiritual representation of India in the world scenario, that Indian culture and literature could not be neglected anymore to be something which is not up to the standard of the European civilization. It is true that India has achieved much greater heights in many fields, and Rabindranath Tagore with his writings made it reach greater heights. Here we will discuss short story The Homecoming by Rabindranath Tagore, which is about a rural boy Fatak and how when he comes to stay with his uncle, family in Calcutta found himself to be a misfit and wanted to go back home, to his rustic life. About the writer, Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore (1861–1941) is one of the greatest writers, poets of the world. He was born on the 7th of May 1861 in Jorasanko, Calcutta. He belonged to the gentry. His father Devendranath Tagore was a zamindar. He was known among the people as Maharshi. His mother's name was Sharada Devi. Rabindranath Tagore was brought up in a large family in their palatial mansion at Jorasanko. He did not have a formal education in school like other school-going children. Tutors were provided at home. He was sent to St. Xavier's School for some time, but he failed to continue being in school. The reason was that he was never comfortable in school and was unable to take interest in the school curriculum. For him, the school was a combination of hospital and jail. So, he was brought back home by his family. He had his training in various subjects through home tutors. He also joined Presidency College in Calcutta. But he left the college as soon as he joined. Then, he went to England in early October of 1878 for higher studies. The atmosphere of a large and affluent family was responsible for his character development. He was not very social and preferred his own company. The members of his family were very interested in artistic activities. The Jorasanko house always seemed to be buzzing with artistic activities and every member took part in that. Having been brought up in such an artistic atmosphere, his inclination towards literature was quite natural. Rabindranath Tagore started writing at a very tender age. He was not only a writer but a self-trained singer-cum-painter. He developed his own style of writing. He wrote novels, short stories, dramas, songs and essays. His famous novels Agora, The Home in the World, 4 chapters, etc. Rabindranath Tagore also won Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913 for his famous collection of poems, Gitanjali. He actively participated in the freedom struggle. During the period of the partition of Bengal in 1905, he came up vehemently against the British policy of divide and rule. Rabindranath Tagore gave up his knighthood as a protest against the Jallianwala Bagh incident, where many innocent Indians were killed by the British. His participation to the Indian freedom struggle directly through his actions and indirectly through his writings created a stir in the early 20th century Bengal. Our national anthem Jana Gana Mana was written by him. As we have already seen that the formal education in schools and colleges was disliked by him when he was a child, therefore when he was an adult, he tried to experiment with the idea of education system. Consequently, he opened a school in Shantiniketan on the 21st of December 1901. Till now, in West Bengal, the Shantiniketan University is one of the famous universities which believe in an informal relationship with students and teachers. He was not only a great writer but a great visionary. He has his dream of a perfect, peaceful world. His visions and dreams are reflected in his works. He passed away on the 7th of August 1941. Summary and critical appreciation of the homecoming. Pathik, a rural lad, was a popular leader among the boys of his village and always was into some mischief or the other and enjoyed the rural setting more than else. Anyway, one day, he and his friends decided to push away a log from the river to create some ruckus for the owner of the log and have fun at his cost. But as he and his friends were about to carry on the mischief, Pathik's younger brother Makan came and sat over the log despite Pathik warning him to get away. When Makan insisted on sitting on the log, Pathik and his friends rolled over the log and Makan fell into the river. Makan rushed back home to complain to his mother. At that moment, as Pathik was sitting pensively at the bank of the river, the servant arrived and called Pathik home where he was being beaten up by his mother for his mischievous acts. At that moment, Pathik's maternal uncle, who had been living for a long time in Bombay, arrives. Upon much deliberation, it was suggested by the uncle to take Pathik to Kolkata where he can pursue his education. It was a matter of delight for Pathik, who was excited about going to Calcutta and a much necessary relief to his mother. As Pathik, the 14-year-old boy, reaches Calcutta, he was not received with any enthusiasm by his aunt, who was already perturbed by her 3 sons. Pathik's schooling began, but he remained an underconfident boy in the school and was despised by everyone. His cousins were the harshest on him, and the walls and buildings of Calcutta started becoming an impediment to his everyday living. He started feeling claustrophobic and was longing to go home. As he expressed his desire to go back to his village, the uncle told him that during vacation, he would be taken to the village, but that was to happen after a long time. Pathik got disturbed over this, as a rural lad being city-pent found himself to be not able to adjust to the ways of the world where the aunt and cousins also make his life intolerable. At last, one day he left his uncle's house on a rainy day, and after a long and arduous search, the policemen were able to trace him completely drenched. He was brought back to his uncle's home where he was in high fever. As Pathik's mother came to meet him from village, he just said, "Mother, the holidays have come." Rabindranath Tagore's The Homecoming apparently seems to be a simple story of a village lad who was being sent by his mother to his maternal uncle's home in Calcutta for his education. It may seem to be a simple story with a very linear plot, but beyond the apparent storyline, the sensibilities and anxieties of the village boy Pathik is presented by Tagore in its profoundest detail. Pathik, who was the ringleader of the village boys, and used to always live a lively life, fell silent and became an introvert when he was put in the context of the city. The migration from village to city is usually seen as a process of progress in terms of career and lifestyle, as the cities supposedly have more access to education and other resources which are necessary for career development as well as for personal progress. So, when Pathik's maternal uncle suggested to his mother that Pathik be sent to live with him in the city, Pathik was more than elated, as he was fascinated by the city life, like everyone else. Before leaving for Calcutta, he even gave all his prized possessions to his younger brother Makan, as he felt that he had no use for them. The romanticism that is associated with the migration to city and the jazzy life of the city always propels people to think in that manner. But as Pathik enters city, he encounters a different reality. He finds that his arrival to his uncle's home in Calcutta was not met with a warm welcome by his aunt. He figured out that the city-bred kids of his age look down upon rural people as uncouth and thus do not show any enthusiasm to get associated with Pathik. Moreover, they tend to distance themselves from him, leading to Pathik spending time in solitude. When the other schoolboys are playing, Pathik is standing near the window looking at things. The village boy who was the ringleader of boys now remains silent most of the time, as he neither finds himself connected to the city life, nor is he accepted by the other kids. In one incident, when he loses a book, he is being reprimanded by his aunt for the same, and it is being told to him that they cannot afford to buy books after books for Pathik. Pathik finds himself not just alone in the city, but also unwanted. A child of 14 who used to enjoy the association with nature, with people around him when he was in village, now is reduced to suffer in his solitude. Pathik felt that he should go back home, but his homecoming was not to happen so easily, as when he suggested to his uncle to take him back to his village, he responded by saying that Pathik would go back during the vacations. His uncle was not able to figure out the real reason of Pathik's desire of homecoming. Pathik could not tolerate the situation anymore and decided to run away from his uncle's home. He did so on a day on which it was raining heavily.